Welcome to my channel, A Theory of Nothing. I am the host, Scott. Yes, I got a buzz cut for the year. I was just trying to trim my hair like I usually do, and I didn't like the way it came out, so I said, take it down, reset, restart. Of course, I did the facial hair to go with it. Good thing about hair, at least for the time being, is it grows back in, so I'm not Jean-Luc Picard at this point. I've been getting feed after feed after feed in my YouTube channel about shifting realities and how to shift realities, and all of them talk about using either a narcotic of some sort, harmonic frequency, magnetic resonant frequency, electrostatic frequency, or some other form of thought inducement via yoga or some other form of meditation. So I want to ask everyone within our community, what did you do? Because, we're going back to that the Great Shift, I want to call it the Great Shift, occurred around 2008 to 2009. And I know all of us have had, and I'll touch base on this in a minute, all of us have had kind of, not all of us, but at least a lot of us have had shift awareness long before that. But the Great Shift, let's talk about that for a minute. What did you do to cause either your reality, if you believe that we are in the same dimension and just everything around us has been changed? What did you do to cause that shift? If you feel that we are also, in the same sense, into an alternate reality, an alternate dimension, what did you do to cause that shift? What drugs were you on at that time? What were you listening to on the radio? Did you have your finger in a light socket and electrocute yourself to some degree? I and my wife, myself and my wife, did jack and shit. Like, we just lived our normal life and we're just doing the normal things. We didn't do anything at all to cause a reality variation. However, here we are. This is why I believe CERN is liable for the Great Awakening. I don't think that what they did was lift some mystical veil, and I don't believe that there's a God, as defined by man, that lifted the veil, and that the world around us is what is real, and we've just been being lied to our entire lives. And now all of a sudden, we can see all these changes, because the changes are constantly occurring, right? We all know that. Things, what they call flip-flop, where it seems to go back to the way it was, and so on and so forth. My thought on that is, there is no going back. We're ever moving forward through multiple dimensions and multiple realities. I think that we could kind of reharmonize and resync up with what was similar to our old reality on some aspects, like logos and things like that, but that we're in an ever-changing environment. Now, from childhood, I've always felt like I didn't belong in the world I was in. Yeah, I got along with everyone. I hung out with a bunch of different people from a bunch of different walks of life, but I was never really one to be classified as a prep or a jock or a geek or a nerd, or the cool crowd or the burnout crowd or any of those things. But I was friends with everyone from basically all walks of life, all different genres. Even the bullies, ironically enough, would befriend me. A lot of times it was because I would stand up to them and put them in their place and correct them for their misactions. And it didn't stop them from being a bully, but at least they didn't bully me. But I never felt like I was in tune, like I belonged. The world around me always seemed strange and odd and unique. Now, I was never some I never did like miraculous type of feats, as it were, like walked on water or did anything else. But I had done a bunch of crazy things when I was a kid, and never really, I kind of went off relatively unscathed. Never really got any major broken bones till I got older. But in general, when I was a kid, I got scraped knees and bruised and bumps and things like that, but never really beyond anything reasonable. But always felt out of sync and out of tune with where I was. Always felt like there was something more, something bigger. That's why I told you in previous videos how I felt like I was meant for a bigger purpose. Like, when I was going through the God thing, I was meant for a bigger God purpose. Like I was going to be around for end of days, and I was going to be some sort of a leader / battler and alone and everything else. Well, that hasn't happened, and maybe that will, or maybe they won't. If this is an apocalyptic type of event, like a lot of you believe, then perhaps I will be around for that, as will probably all of us. Thinking of it from we're the witnesses perspective. But my belief is we've always shifted through multiple realities and multiple dimensions, multiple universes, as part of our holographic simulation that we all reside in, right? I feel that we all there's a lot of scientists that talk about this and can evolve every ounce of life down to almost a summation of ones and zeros, which would indicate obviously a prophetic controlled design mechanism to our existence and to everything else in the universe. Now, it's very likely that the world, the earth that we are within, is all there is. And we can go to some minor outer reaches of space in low atmospheric conditions, or lower stratospheric conditions. And I talked about that, I believe, in another video too. That, I don't think that a lot of these things that science claims are out there actually exist. I could be wrong. I could be proven completely wrong by that. But, I think that the world is not flat, that we are on a sphere of some sort, and that everything else kind of goes around us. And this goes back into some of the cross-mix of theories of, thousands of years ago we believed the earth was flat, and then we believed we were the center of the universe and everything went around us, and then now we believe we're a ball spinning around another ball, spinning around another ball, spinning through the endless vastness of space around a central ball or whatever in the center of the universe. That's a current theory by scientists and cosmologists. So, what is the reality? What isn't the reality? Who knows? Unless you get high enough in level in the military and or in NASA or some other field specific to those things, you may never know. And even they may not know. To them, the reality may be that all these things outside of what we can view on a day-to-day basis fully exist. It's just some of this stuff is just crazy with the SpaceX and everything else going on, and how fast their technology is moving and evolving. And how many rovers we've supposedly sent up to Mars, yet we don't have a rover on the moon. Well, that's because the moon, there's nothing really to exist. It's just a rock floating in space. Or is it an actual alien base, and are we actually there? And do we have alien bases on Mars and we're actually there? And all of it is just a deep state psyop to dispose humans from knowing what's really going on. I don't know. I know I could do tons of videos on all that different subject matter, and I may or may not in the future do it. Similar to like what Edge of Wonder has been doing. But I don't know. My hardcore belief is that we are jumping through multiple realities as we experience it as being a reality. That reality, unbeknownst to probably the majority of us, is a hologram type simulated reality, going all the way down to us being subatomic particles vibrating and resonating at alternate frequencies and different variations of frequencies, even our consciousness. And that our consciousness, not our physical being, is what is jumping. And I can only base this summation to my own experiences, both through research and physical experiences. My wife has additional holes in her ears. There's been plenty of times where I set an object down, then I go to grab it, whether it be a minute later or a day later, and it's gone. And then a minute after that, or an hour after that, or a day after that, it remanifests. Or sometimes it manifests in a different place altogether. But in my awareness, it's been manifesting in the same spot for me, more relevant than anything else. Things like the Illuminati Taco Bell commercial. I was doing a lot of research, and so was my wife, and we were going down the Illuminati trail when we were trying to discern what was going on with the Mandela effect, and how the Illuminati was tied to the deep state and all this other thing. And then lo and behold, all of a sudden Taco Bell comes out with the Illuminati branding commercials. And then there was all sorts of everyone else glammed onto it, between deodorants and footwear and clothing lines and all that stuff. And of course, it's always been in Hollywood, and it's always been in the music industry. And then it was just much more relevant and getting more and more and more. And that stuff still exists. But then my wife and I, started watching another Netflix series the other day, The Magicians, I think it's called, or whatever. Basically, it's a bunch of kids who are in a school of magic, and then it's this whole end of world and time travel and all this stuff. Well, guess what? The newest Taco Bell commercial is about fairies and magicians and unicorns and all this weird, crazy stuff. Ironically, probably within a day after we finished watching season 1 of this, or season 2, I think it was, of The Magicians on Netflix. Now, could be strictly coincidence, because that series has been out for a while. I mean, it's a sci-fi network series, and it's on Netflix, and we just happened to watch season 1 and 2 back to back when we had some time in between our other shows that we watch. And then, bam, all of a sudden this stuff is out there. So, am I creating that? I'm not sure. I mean, unless all of you happen to do the same thing and watch the exact same program at the exact same time that we did, and all of a sudden we all manifested this. It just seems crazy. And that kind of stuff happens all the time. And that's why I feel that to some degree this is a holographic universe. I observe planes, and I've talked about this before too. My wife gets irritated with me because I bring it up all the time. She notices it too. Planes stopping in midair. They go behind an object, whoop, they vanish, they disappear. They appear out of what seems to be thin air. That would lead to it being a holographic universe, a simulation of some sort, because whether we're jumping realities, that's the case. Unless, and here is the one thing that I didn't talk to her about, unless we are now, because of CERN, maybe creating a great awakening, that when we are seeing planes stop, it's because we're jumping actually through reality. So you're not actually seeing a plane stop. You're just seeing through multiple realities that you're shifting through, where you're actually moving through time on the reality. So like, let's just say I'm in a car and I'm traveling, right? And I observe a plane stopped. Maybe I'm shifting because we're shifting through multiple realities every second of every day, of every moment of every day. And maybe in those realities, I'm still moving forward in this car. So I'm like, boop, 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 boop. But in those realities, that plane is, let's say, behind the time. So in this reality, it's here. And in every other timeline, it's a half a second or so behind itself. So I'm moving through time linearly, and it appears like the airplane is not moving. That's one of the latest thoughts that I had about this reality shifting and paradigm shifting, and can kind of go hand in hand with objects appearing to disappear and then reappear. Is perhaps in an alternate dimension, I didn't set that object down there yet. I still make the decision to set the object there, but that timeline in an alternate dimension hasn't caught up to my current observational timeline. And then all of a sudden they do sync up, and bam, it's there. And by the opposite effect, it could be that it was set down there maybe a day ago, and I haven't caught up to that timeline yet. Same type of principle going on. Not moving forward or backward in time. That I believe is bullshit, and that we can't do that. But because I believe time is linear. But I think that as time is linear, perhaps these out of sync realities that we are now able to experience is a real thing. Now, why are we experiencing that? Why are we all of a sudden, since this 2008, 2009, able to experience it? Did CERN break the world, the reality simulator? Did they just, with their particle collisions, did they just, I don't know, damage is the right word, the consciousness of those of us who are aware and awoken? Did they somehow, at a subatomic level, alter our own conscious, the resonating vibrations of that, to where now we're accelerating through realities with larger variations? That I'm not sure of. But that could also lend to, again, the world seeming like a holographic simulation. Us constantly jumping through timelines and having the variations in there could also be what's making scientists and physicists and cosmologists and all those guys think that we live in a simulated reality, a holographic universe, because they're observations. If you have zero explanation for something, why not come up with something? And a good thing to come up with to explain why things change and why planes stop in midair and why all these other things happen is, oh, this is a simulation. I like to think of it like a computer simulation. And then it's a glitch. It's like a glitch in the Matrix. I don't know that anything really glitches. I know that my wife and I had an incident before the holidays. We were sitting in a bar, and everything in the bar was hyper familiar to both of us. Like the band we recognized, they were getting ready to go on. All the people around us we recognized, and then all of a sudden the band leader got up and he's announced their bass guitarist to everyone. And it's like, for those of you who are in the music industry, you might know so and so, and he is, he was the lead bass guitarist for the original Bullet Boys. And this is his premiere performance with us, which is where my wife and I's jaw just about busted through the table that we were sitting at. Because if this is their premiere performance, we've never seen them before. It wouldn't have even been possible. Yet, everyone in the band we recognized, especially the lead guitarist and the lead singer, because they were very, very uniquely dressed. Their hair and their everything, they stood out like a sore thumb, as it were. And several people within the crowd. I mean, it was almost like an episode of Twilight Zone for both of us that we were both experiencing. Like, we experienced this, and then now we're experiencing it. Kind of like almost a Groundhog Day type of feeling. But as I feel, as I just stated, I don't believe in time regression. So I don't think we saw into the future and then we're going back. I think that perhaps we have mentally connected with an alternate reality that was time advanced forward of our reality, and we caught up to that, or that I don't want to say that we even lived it or experienced it or dreamt it before and then we caught up to that. I think it's just some of the consciousness of the reality got mingled in with ours in that shift. Now, the only thing about this is, CERN had already shut down, so it wouldn't be due to the particle collider at this point. Doesn't mean that all the other continuing experiments like Fermilab and everything else here in the U.S. couldn't be keeping this frequency of shifting going on. Like CERN kind of broke our lock that was limiting us from shifting into an alternate reality that was too far out of sync with our reality. Which is why you never notice changes, because they're so minuscule to your base reality. And what I mean by that is, it's very likely that we could have shifted, if I'm not a historian, it's very likely that I could shift into alternate realities that have mass history changes. And I just don't notice them because that's not part of my normal everyday observation. However, now with the internet, with all of us kind of being connected, perhaps now these multiple changes, these multitudinal changes, have too much awareness by people who it does speak to. It is close to their heart as a variation. I'm not 100% sure on that. Again, I don't have the answers. I'd love for us to be able to get a conference, like a Southwest regional conference together, that we could all get together and meet and talk about that. It's kind of a scary proposition if you are at all even remotely thinking that there's a deep state and governmental conspiracies and black operations and CIA movements and men in black type of thinking, or aliens or any of that stuff. Because hey, if we round ourselves together, it would make easy pickings for them, right, to get us in. I don't know that would happen, and unless we lent credence to that and thought process, I don't think it could happen. But it would be interesting, and I would love for a lot of us to be able to get together in a conference-based environment and talk about our experiences and our thoughts and our feelings about stuff. And I mean from every walk of the Mandela effect community life. Just so that maybe if enough of us line up our thought processes, we can start to whittle down to maybe what is really going on and what really has happened. So yeah, it'll be curious to see what goes on. But getting back to the base point of my video, and I tend to do that, right? I stray away from my path, and then I try to circle it back around. I personally, my wife personally, haven't taken any drugs or done anything, or we're sitting in front of a TV where we had a spinning, whirling thing that did it. We don't get flu vaccinations. We didn't listen to some specifically weird song or anything like that. Again, when we noticed the shift, we both felt it and we both noticed it, but neither one wanted to say something to the other one because we didn't want to seem crazy. I stumbled upon it later on after my awareness and my awakeness, and heard other people's stories and found camaraderie with that before, and researched it for months and months and months before I even proposed it to my wife as being a possibility, because of those people that said, oh, I shifted, my spouse didn't, my friends didn't, and they're alone. And that kind of made me nervous that I would be alone in this. Fortunately, I have my wife. She's also aware and awakened. But based on previous conversations her and I have had about our own childhood experiences and the crazy shit that we both experienced with UFOs and not necessarily aliens, but spiritual beings. And I'm going to say spiritual beings in a sense of they could have been paranormal as in ghost. They could have been just paranormal as in alien. They could have been paranormal as in alternate dimensions, demons, and angels, whatever. We both have had a lot of that. We both have our own hang-ups and our reservations about anyone who says they're a psychic or they're a this or they're a that, and then turn around and fucking charge people a bunch of money for knowledge. I've gone to, just kind of an off-track thing, but I've gone to very, very many psychics in the past with friends and groups and things like that. The only ones that I knew for a fact were authentic were the ones who refused to give me a reading, for the simple fact that they would stand right up, and there's probably been a half a dozen of them that did it between being back in Michigan and being out here in Phoenix. There's probably about a half a dozen of them, and out of several dozens that I've ever gone and seen. And again, I wasn't necessarily there to see them, but maybe it was with people or different things like that, or they were at festivals. The ones who sat there and told me they could not tell me anything I did not know. And the ones who also tracked me down and pulled me over just to tell me that my aura, that my essence my residence was off the chart overpowering, to the point where it drew people. You know, it's like a black hole. I draw people in, and that's true. When my wife and we go out, it's kind of funny, and it gets us in trouble sometimes, because we get into, we get the jealousy thing going on sometimes, and get into it. But we try not to. When we go out and we're emotionally having a great time, people just, it's odd. We don't, like, I don't stand up on a table and I don't act like an asshole, or I don't try to be like, out there, or throw myself out there and be, wearing a crazy feather hat or something, ridiculous like Prince or something like that. Yet people tend to flock into our area. It's kind of crazy. Like, we could be in a room and the room could be really, really packed, and then when it starts to die down, we notice that there's still a flock of people around us. Like, they're magnetized to us. And her and I have talked about this before. And again, getting back to the ones who I think probably have some true psychic awareness about them, or maybe tapped into their consciousness a little bit deeper than most, pick up on that and have told me about that. How many of you have ever been told that, or feel that way? Maybe you aren't the life of the party. Like, you don't try to be the one who stands out in the crowd, but can you walk into a room and people are drawn to you? I know that we have friends, and anywhere we go, I tend to make friends with people. It doesn't mean they're lasting friends, but if I go to a crowded room, I get maybe drawn to a guy who's the outcast. People will tell me, "Oh, he's the outcast," and never fails, I get lined up with talking to that outcast, and come to find out he's not an outcast. You guys are making him an outcast just because he's a little odd duck. And what happens is, then people who would talk to me, who want to be around me, now want to be around this guy who is per se an outcast. And I had this experiment happen with some friends of ours. We had met this friend at one bar. That bar went out of business. We moved to another bar. None of us really wanted to be there, but then we started to get acclimated to it. Then I became friends with, like, and I say friends, to use the term loosely, a community associate with everyone in the bar, even the guys who were assholes and different things like that. I got to talk to everyone and got to know everyone. Then my friend, who wanted nothing to do with anybody, all of a sudden he started talking to everyone. Then I disassociated with a lot of them because it ran its course for me. Yet that guy who was a friend of mine continued on that relationship to anyone. As soon as I pulled myself out of that environment and said, I'm done with it, I've moved on, which is when the Mandela effect thing came in, everyone, like, the band broke up. Like, everyone in the bar split, started going their own ways. The pool tournaments that we were playing in just dispensed and went somewhere else. The owner that I was friends with that I became friends with sold the bar and moved on, and it was just kind of odd timing. But things like that always seem to happen with us, and it's always been that way my entire life. And that's probably speaks more to why we are aware and awake. So I'm curious as to how many of you are that way too. Are you the accidental life of the party, whether you want to be or not? Let me know. Let me know in the comments section below. Also, let me know if any of you guys are interested in us putting together a conference. And we're not going to call it the Mandela Effect Conference, because I don't want that title hooked to us on that. But we'll come up with something, and maybe out here Phoenix is beautiful. It's pretty much beautiful all year round. And I know it might be a stretch for some of you to get away to get here, but if someone else in another state, maybe more centralized in the country, wanted to try to coordinate something like that, hey, let me know. Let me know if we can all work something out, or where everyone is located here. And yes, for some of you that are out of country, it'd be a bigger issue, but maybe we can set up the conference in such a fashion that we can have a global connected community through webcams, and that literally anyone in any state, anywhere in the world, can connect to this conference via webcam, like a live feed webcam, and have module stations set up where people can interact through webcams, through micro webcams. So, you know, you can see the whole conference through a webcam, and you can also see it from individual stations. Now, I know there's a danger there that the governments could sink into it and so on and so forth, but hey, as an aware and awakened individual, I ain't goddamn afraid of these mother effers. You know, if I get the feds come and knock on my door, I'll talk to them and I'll tell them what the hell's going on, and I'll let them know, hey, take me to your damn leader. I want to know the inside track to what's going on here. You want me to back down? You want me to ease up? It's not going to happen. But I'm not afraid of fallout from it. That's why I post my videos. Anyways, until the next video, stay awake, stay aware, and let's talk.